Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. Now, before I begin in covering some of the current and ongoing engagements that are taking place within the confines of this conflict, I felt I needed to reiterate the size and scope of this war that is taking place. And right now, in all probability, this is the largest conflict in terms of loss of human life that is taking place on the earth today. If you listen or watch the mainstream media, you will hear very, very little of this devastating conflict as it continues. Some individuals, some analysts say that this is on par with a second African World War, the likes that we saw in the Congo in terms of size and scope and the amount of personnel that have been mobilized in this war. And again, we'll look here at the actors involved. One, you have Eritrea, a country, a despotic nation state ruled by Isaias Afwerki, much like the despotic state of North Korea, has conscripted a force well over 300,000 personnel. Probably in excess of that, given some renewed conscription efforts where they're looking to conscript 40 and 50-year-olds into the National Army, the Eritrean National Army. Already a nation that requires all coming-of-age men and women to serve in the military, some sort of national service for a indeterminate amount of time. So again, 300, some say Eritrea could be deploying as many as 500,000 personnel in this renewed conflict. Compounding that, they also have significant mechanization. They have, by some accounts, upwards to 700 to 1,000 main battle tanks prior to the onset of hostilities. Some reports such as the International Institute of Strategic Studies, state that the Eritrean Army could have 700 plus T-55, 54 main battle tanks and an additional couple hundred T-62s as well. And again, a vast array of armored personnel carriers, heavy artillery, all projected at the Tigray region. In the south, you have the Abiy loyalist forces, the what was known as and is known as the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. We don't know what that number looks like, but we believe it is in excess of 300,000 personnel. Now, they have taken incredible losses recently and over the course of the last year and a half that have devastated the ability of the Abiy loyalist forces to function, especially some of those losses that they took in the central Tigray region when they were evicted from the Tigray region. Now this renewed onset of hostilities that started about a month ago, again, we have seen in excess of possibly 300,000 ENDF or Abiy loyalist forces that have been deployed, much of which, again, towards the Tigray region. By some estimates, some believe that between Eritrea and the Abiy loyalist formations, which include Afar regional militias, Amhara regional militias, and then again the ENDF itself, we could be looking at close to 1 million personnel that have been deployed in this conflict. And then you look at the force that is meeting these two forces, these two combined forces, the Tigray region. 200,000, 250,000 personnel. And that is the size and the scope of the conflict. We have seen some, within the last week or two, some horrendous losses being reported, especially in the north near Shiraro. But as we look at what's happening now, we are receiving reports that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are withdrawing from the North Wallo region, out of just north of Weldia and Kobo. And in fact, we have now reports that Fano militias have re-entered Kobo as the Tigrayan Defense Forces have conducted a fairly orderly withdrawal back into the Tigray region. Now, as I talked about at the start of this renewed conflict, and as we saw the Tigrayan Defense Forces move south, seizing control of Kobo Robot, obtaining defensive positions outside of Sakota and Lalibela in this area here, and then threatening Weldia. At the same time, as this was happening, we saw this massive buildup of Eritrean forces along the southern border of Eritrea with the Tigray region. So at that point in time, it really looked like once the Tigrayan Defense Forces deployed into the northern Amhara region, in this northeast quadrant, or this southeast quadrant of the Tigray region, south of Alamata, it was designed as a defensive strategy to prevent any sort of offensive operations by Abiy loyalist forces into southeastern Tigray. It was a very effective operation initially, where we observed the Tigrayan Defense Forces utterly decimate multiple Abiy loyalist divisions east of Kobo near the Zobel mountain range in this area here, and just to the north of Kobo, which then allowed them to rapidly advance, seizing control of Kobo Robot, and just set up defensive positions just to the north of Weldia. And this was all by design. Again, it looked like, and it does look like, the Tigrayan Defense Forces are employing a win-hold strategy, meaning the biggest threat for the Tigray region right now is coming from Eritrea in the north. They have the largest force construct that is directed towards the Tigray region. They have vast amounts of mechanized forces, tanks, armored infantry fighting vehicles, heavy artillery, and a limited air force. And more importantly, a fairly well-mobilized armed forces that have been directed towards the northern Tigray region. So the initial objectives of the Tigrayan Defense Forces when it moved into the northeastern Amhara region was not like the strategy employed before, where it rapidly moved south, seizing control of Desse, Kombolcha, and then eventually threatening the capital, Addis Ababa. That was not the case this time around. It was designed to enter these areas and establish defensive positions and essentially decimate Abiy loyalist forces near Kobo in the Zobel mountain range. And that was effectively done. When the Eritrean army finally crossed the border en masse, again, the first attacks initiated near Shiraro, then moved to the east and south towards Shire, with the eventual goal, or the first goal, of seizing control of Adidaro. The other two areas where we have seen the Eritrean military move into the Tigray region was along the Rama route of advance, this area here, and then further to the east, which would be the direct route along the B-20 highway down towards Mekelle near Zalambasa at this point in this area. We also saw limited movement of Eritrean forces in the direction of Abala and Berhale in this area here. But logistically, it's very difficult for the Eritrean army to continue to supply itself in this area. But as this operation unfolded, and the Eritrean army moved into the Tigray region, the northern Tigray region, it's really had no success. It was stopped just outside of Shiraro as they took control of Shiraro and tried to advance. And we know right now the Tigrayan Defense Forces is counterattacking within the vicinity of Shiraro, and there continues to be battles taking place near Adidaro as well. The reported level of casualties that is occurring in this area here, running from Shiraro to Adidaro, is reported to be horrific. Massive casualties, especially in terms of the casualties sustained by the Eritrean and Abiy loyalist forces as they attempted to move into this area of the Tigray region. The Tigrayan Defense Forces were very well prepared in these areas and have set up multiple defensive barriers and defensive belts in the northern Tigray region. And it's become very, very difficult for the Eritrean army to progress past Shiraro and within the confines of Adidaro as well. Further to the east, near Rama and Zalambasa, it's been the same. Very, very difficult for the Eritrean army to penetrate these multiple belts of Tigrayan defensive lines. And right now it looks like the Tigrayan Defense Forces is fairly confident now that it can hold the lines south of Alamata, just to the north of Kobo, along the A2 highway, and then to the east of Sokoto as well. So again, this whole process of win in the north, hold the south, looks to be, at least right now, to be working for the Tigrayan Defense Forces. Now, obviously, could that change in the future? Sure, it could. I mean, it's an ongoing conflict that we're watching very, very closely. But right now, it does look like the Tigrayan Defense Forces are moving additional forces from the southeast, again, that were designed to hold areas in the southeast, and those forces are being redeployed in the direction of Eritrea. Now, is this going to take the form of a counterattack by the Tigrayan Defense Forces into Eritrea? Or are they using it to further strengthen their defensive lines as the Eritrean army conducts these massive human wave assaults against these very deep Tigrayan Defense Force defensive lines in the north? But that's where we're at for today. We are continuing to watch very, very closely. Again, incredible level of intensity in terms of the fighting that is taking place, especially near Shiraro and north of Shire. The reports of dead and wounded or something on par with what was seen during World War I. At the same time, we are seeing elements of modern war being directed against the Tigray region as well, in the form of some of these advanced Turkish drones that have been deployed. But again, that's where we set for today. We will continue to monitor, report, and bring you more information as we get it, and more to come very, very soon. Again, thank you for joining us today, and as always, have a good day.